Hello everyone, welcome to Patikapeon, the Greek Ukrainian podcast. My name is Ilias. Today we have here with us Andriy Taranov. Andriy is a media expert with 25 years of experience in media and marketing consultancy in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. He's also a member of the board of the state TV, radio and digital broadcaster Suspilne, something like Earth but for Ukraine. Andriy is also a Philhellene, basically a friend of Greece.
Українці і греки.
From simply hanging on.
Πατρίδα, ελευθερία, δημοκρατία. Μην σιωπήσετε. Ακολουθήστε το δρόμο της καρδιάς. Βοηθήστε όπως μπορεί ο καθένας τους Ουκρανούς.
So I'm very happy to have you. And I want to ask you to tell us more about yourself. Who are you? What's your background? How did you end up working with Ukraine's national broadcaster? And then we can talk about how you ended up loving Greece so much.
Hello, and thank you for having me here in your podcast. I'm Andriy Taranov, as Ilias said, and I used to work for advertising and media since mid-90s in Ukraine, and then we've expanded our consultancy business throughout what they used to call the ex-Soviet countries, which is now no good to say about the Baltics, which are very separate, definitely, and the Caucasus and the Central Asian region. So had a bit of experience around Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and you said we were focused on advertising and marketing jobs, most of all, about how the industry has evolved throughout this part of the world after the Soviets collapsed and the Western economy was replacing what remained of the debris of the Soviet Empire falling on our heads, and I was always in love with media as a phenomenon that brings people together, that develops the creative industries, like the newest things to tell the stories to the people, and the new ways to tell the stories to the people and keep them together, to keep them with the things that they can share among them. I'm very fascinated about this whole digital transformation from traditional press and television and radio into the new platforms, and how now it turns out to be we now make a lot of effort to understand how the old traditions get into the new platforms, and how these combinations bring you some new ideas and new media, and like your podcast among others, as new formats that take. This is a good idea that you always try to look at how to not to burn down all the previous experience, but try to take the best out of the traditional things and then grow something new on the new grounds. That's basically what I was more or less doing last years around with many media companies, and I joined the public broadcaster as you said, like 3 weeks before the Russian invasion started on the 1st of February 2022. That was a time when there was definitely a feeling in the air that something bad gonna happen.
And could you tell us, actually, I had a few other questions to be honest to ask you, but since you mentioned that you joined 3 weeks before the full-scale invasion, tell us a little bit about when the tower where the national broadcaster was hosted, was stationed, was a target of an attack.
Well, actually, maybe if I think many of your listeners had never been to Kyiv, but the whole idea is there's a high TV tower, which is like 5-10 kilometers from where we're sitting now, and the Soviets in the 70s, they built a TV center next to the TV tower, which is a separate building, but it's like 25-story building. It's a skyscraper with a piece of land around that, which is the construction ground for like 30 years actually, which is kind of strange. But the television office was sitting there, and when the invasion started, the Russians hit it in the first days of March. It was like in I don't know, it was in a week since the invasion started, something like that. And they had two. I saw the forensic architecture model. So they hit the two missiles were targeting the TV tower itself in the bottom, because they had the connectors there for the cable operators and service premises. And the another one was targeting the TV center. But actually, the second one missed more than 50 meters, I would say, like 100 meters from the office. So we just lost the glass windows. But they hit the gym, and that was like 100 meters away from our office.
But the first rocket hit?
The first rocket hit the tower itself, in the very bottom of the tower. The tower still stands, which is good, because there was a risk that it might fall down. And like recently they hit the Kharkiv tower, for example. They are very, very focused on targeting the communication infrastructure, and they mostly failed, which is strange, but good news for us. But for example, in 2 years they managed to hit the Kharkiv tower, and it broke actually. In Kyiv they hit the bottom and the leg of the tower, but it didn't break. It shaked, but it still stands. The funny thing about that is actually Kyiv, speaking professionally, Kyiv was covered by cable and OTT networks several years before the invasion started. So actually the air television that is broadcast by the TV tower makes like percents of the audience share. So it was never a key to cut the population of the information. It was just some 90% symbolic move rather than practical from the media point of view, I would say.
Then what about that information that you're producing? Could you talk to us about, first of all, what is your brand name? Because I think it's important. And could you share some numbers actually about your presence, your geographical cover, what broadcasting products you are creating, documentaries and stuff like that, radio, digital content, and also the audience that you have. So
maybe then a bit about public broadcasting system here now and where we are now, because definitely it's not that easy to compare to any other country, because every public broadcasting system has their own history. There's always BBC to show as an example in the textbooks, but I think every country has specific ways, especially if you talk Eastern Europe. And basically, if we are in the position like we are the company that celebrates 100 years of Ukrainian radio this November, but on the other hand, we are the 5-year-old brand for many of the people around us, if you ask them in the street, because actually the public media is the current situation of Suspilne, which is called Suspilne is the public, I would say, to translate it from Ukrainian, belonging to the public. So we're not a state company anymore that we used to be throughout the whole prehistory, throughout the whole Soviet period. It was just a state television and radio company that was definitely a backbone of communist propaganda and of the government control of the media. And then after the collapse of the Soviets, Ukrainian media market was very competitive with the very active development of local actors in private media sector. So, and the state media, state TV and radio broadcasting company was in shambles actually for years. They had many different ideas how to control this state enterprise, but it was never very effective, I would say. We will celebrate like 20 years of Orange Revolution this November as well, from 2004. And in 2005, after the Orange Revolution, there was the first attempt to properly reform it into public broadcasting system. It failed that time, and then it came Maidan in 2013, and since 2014 this idea went back on air, and in 2015 there was a new law, and this was very important that this is the reform that was done properly, meaning that it started with a proper legal framework. So the team of active people and those the guys I respect fantastically for what they did, which we around them in the private-owned media industry thought was absolutely impossible. So the legal framework created the opportunity to change the situation and to guarantee independence, relevance for the public service media as we are now in almost 10 years since the law was passed. But actually in 2017 the actual reshaping of the company started, and it was a huge and it was really painful process, because the team that arrived, they had to deal with all those complications starting from the post-Soviet heritage and many people just sitting around the country doing nothing and getting the tiny salaries for the opportunity to get some preferences from local governments, for example, or stuff like that, to the absolutely outdated infrastructure, the old rusty hardware. And they went through the Duraba Lasania, who used to run the reform at that moment with a small team of managers. They managed to put everything, make all the things different, like change they cut the stuff twice, change all the key people, change the strategy, change the whole idea of, and implant this understanding that public service media is not state media. The state is the shareholder, but the state covering the expenses, the state shouldn't influence the editorial policy. Mm-hmm. And the society is the our major client in terms of we should service the society and to give them the proper understanding of what's going on, first of all, and then go by BBC standards like inform, educate, entertain. So we are not that big in terms of entertainment, though we have Eurovision and some sports and cultural programming, but private media are big in the entertainment business. But in terms of information and education, we're moving forward very fast, and now we're a big player in this part of media scene.
So you're making Eurovision, you cover sports events.
Yep.
Do you also cover the war? Do you have some... If you could talk more about it, if you can tell us more so that we can visualize the product that you offer.
Well, actually, first of all, we are present on almost every platform, I would say. We have television stations, we have radio stations, we have websites, social networks. So we are present on all the platforms, from the most archaic formats, I would say, to the most recent social media developments. Like, for example, we have accounts in Threads or channels in WhatsApp, even, which is kind of not yet any popular in Ukraine. But we must experiment understanding how the people change their habits rapidly, especially in this situation. We might talk about that later as well. But we are present everywhere. First of all, our core business is definitely news and information. And since the invasion started, is definitely the reason for us to be here and the most important thing that we do. And for that, we have a biggest network of the journalists that covers the whole country, including the front areas. And these are the people who do a fantastic job and who are the most important for the company and for our content now. And this is very recognized now, and this is a success we are proud of, and this is the core product, which is distributed through television, radio, and digital platforms. We have a hybrid newsroom. Basically, we have the newsroom that prepares news items for every platform. We don't have separate editorial boards for television or radio, for example. It's like news are the news for, and then there are the Go platforms. But we also produce documentaries, investigations. We do a lot of cultural products, and there's a big growth in demand for historical and educational products. Especially, it's not about just educating kids, but it's very important for press to help replace Russian stereotypic Russian products in education. But it's also about older people who were grown up in the Soviets and they went to the Soviet schools and they lived their quiet lives in many places, and now they need to figure out they couldn't have imagined that Russia might attack Ukraine, and now they try to figure out how it works, and now suddenly they realize that the history they were taught was absolutely different to the proven facts and any European point of view on the history of the region, for example. So we do a lot of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then there goes sports and creative stuff on top.
Yeah. I have to say that I hear a lot of Ukrainian friends having mad respect for Suspilne and its coverage of the war. And talking about the war and basically what you said as your core product, a journalistic product. I want to ask you, why is journalism, in your view, important in times of war? When we first met each other in Kyiv, you said something very nice, that the press is a pillar of democracy. Could you explain it to us, and what do you mean by that?
Definitely. Well, I don't think there should be any argument around the idea that the freedom of speech and free press as a illustration, the best illustration of freedom of speech, press in wide sense, meaning media, is one of the foundations of any European view on the democracy, because it brings you different points of view. It brings you opportunity not to get indoctrinated by the government or any ideology that just kills your initiative and kills your own ideas, and it doesn't let you create some competitive thinking, And I must say that, I'm following the Russian media for many years, so we did a lot of analytics around that, and 10 years ago and something like that, and I have friends who still work on these issues. For example, the Russian society was badly indoctrinated exactly by the media. So the state of Russian society is now defined by their monopoly, propaganda monopoly on the major media, and their dominance of the top television media over anything else for dozen of years, even more, I believe, almost 20 years. Well, Ukraine is very different in that. We used to have very competitive media market, and this is what differentiates Ukraine from many other countries in the region, actually. Not only ex-Soviet ones, I would say, but people are using, and this is what we see now. We still see it now on the big data, actually, because people got used to the fact that they should check the sources, that they should verify the sources, that they must get different points of view from different media before they jump to some conclusions. They were not pushed to accept any idea that is driven by any political force or government, whoever. So the Ukrainian people got used to that after the independence. It's a long and very it doesn't happen that fast. It's not irreversible, and Russia is a good example of the reverse of this process of free media in the early 90s to the total monopoly by start of this century, and total control of the public opinion now. So we went through different paths, and the whole existence of Ukrainian democracy is based on the fact that there were competitive media, and every effort to monopolize power in Ukraine faced resistance from the media as part of the society. So I believe the public broadcasting now is in being the new system that is reinstated like last 5-6 years. This is the essence of the whole evolution of the media processes in the country for years before that.
I think in my mind, journalism, free press is a function of democracy. If it functions well, then democracy can also function as well. And in terms of war, it's a bit different, because actually free press and criticizing showing the weaknesses, showing the vulnerabilities, which is something that dictatorships don't do, for example, like in Russia. This is something that, in our democratic mindset, is something that strengthens the country, the society, the institutions. So I think it's a pretty important job.
Yeah, and this is not the easiest thing to do. This is you are exactly right. Speaking about the wartime brings you even more challenges because there are security limitations, and definitely you can harm your own military. You can harm your own friends that are on the front lines with your information, and this is very sensitive things, and there's no, when the invasion started, we were at war since 2014 actually, yes, and there were some basic hygienic things that were reasonably installed along the front lines, so about physical security and things like that. But actually, there's no easy rules that you can copy-paste. Now, we have a lot. I'm not a journalist myself, I must say it again, but my colleagues who run the news service, they are in everyday discussions with the colleagues from Europe about what's right, what's wrong, how to do it properly, where the military limitations must end, where the discussion about what's right, what's wrong, existentially and socially and economically, what's going on around that. We do a lot of things. We launched we were the first ones to relaunch the political show, talk show, for example, with the politicians from different parties, opposition and government, discussing what's going well, what's going not well. Yeah, and we have a weekly show, and it's a weekly risk because we don't censor anyone. It's all live, and this is by the way that it's very important point about the situation that when you speak security, you face the situation that you go live. If you go live and you have dozens of people going live on air, you never know all of them, It's not like the monopolization of the media is that either you do it pre-recorded, or like in Russia you have like assigned speakers and they're the same every day and they are well briefed and prepared and they know what they do for their propaganda job. The Ukrainian media were never this. From the day first of the invasion, there were dozens of people, like people who run the towns, people who run the military, people who run the civil organizations. They were going live on air to tell what's going on around them. And it feels so natural for us, I believe, but it's not so unnatural for.
We shouldn't take it for granted.
Yes, we shouldn't take it for granted, absolutely. And from the military restrictions point of view, it might be very risky, and it used to create risks. So we have to be properly fit to manage all this, but still to keep bringing people the true picture so they really understand what's going on around, what's out of the window. It's not like what the picture someone wants them to believe in.
Tell us about the praise you received from the European Union. I mean, now you are a journalist. It's an important function for the war. It's important for the society to be informed. Could you brag a little bit about Suspilne?
Suspilne was, as a reform, like as I told you, was getting from that state of the post-Soviet company into the proper public media service. We were supported all the way by the European Union and different organizations around that, like be it Deutsche Welle, be it BBC Media Action. I can't tell you all the names because I will definitely miss someone, but we are extremely grateful to everyone in this process, the European Union office, actually, etc., the ambassadors, the embassies, the funds, the American organizations as well, the Japanese government, and we were very much supported by NHK Foundation as well as by the Europeans. But the whole effort, international effort around that was to create some security perimeter where they can expect the independent journalism to grow on this ground of post-Soviet controlled media. And they were successful in creating this perimeter in the very beginning. They helped build the proper newsroom. They helped with the trainings a lot. They helped with the many small and very big things like hardware, professional skills, and last but not least, the political backing and political support of this process. We're not perfect, definitely. We can make mistakes, but we still are in this process of evolution. And with all this support, the company, when the invasion started, the company was well prepared. With the whole network of journalists was well trained, well motivated. Again, there are things that we take for granted. No one defected. There was just one person in Kherson who defected from the technical stuff. We have more than 3,000 people scattered around, I believe this is a good sign of all of the journalists were well trained and properly motivated and understood what's going on around. And creating this system before the invasion started was a huge success for Zurab and the first team that started the reform, so that when the invasion started, they were ready to provide quality content, verified content, the content that people could trust. And it paid off very well in any figures of public trust and growing our reach and growing our audiences. But it would all fall apart without the support from the international donors and the international and the European Union and the US and Japan and other countries that helped us, because we got support with the hardware as well. When we started reserve broadcasting from Western Ukraine, we got additional equipment that physically allowed us to be present on air everywhere, for example.
Okay, that's great and super interesting, and thank you for sharing all this information. I have a last question for you, personal one. You have a fascination with Greece.
Oh, yes.
Why Greece and what happened?
I fell in love like 15 years ago when we visited first time with the family for a vacation, definitely. And I feel this, since that we were going many times per year. So like I tried to manage it be 2-3 times per year. I have a family with 4 children, and we all grown with this love to. We went to Crete, and it was my dream to that one day my business pays off and I retire, and maybe I will retire to Greece. But this was like very standard thinking of that. But then I have many friends around, and we go to the same place in the villages near Rethino. I love the spirit, and I love I think we have a lot of things in common in attitudes, and it was very easy to make friends with Greeks around, even though not all of them were speaking English, and that's why I tried to learn some basic Greek, and I still struggle getting through to speaking fluently, but I still have a hope that after the war I will be better, and I do my bits of practice in Duolingo. I'm now not allowed to leave the country, being a member of the board of public broadcaster. I travel for the business trips, but not for vacations. But anyway, I love it. I just love it, and I would love to learn more. I would love to speak Greek, and I would love to have more friends around.
Perfect. That's amazing. You will be welcomed whenever you come. So, Andriy, thank you so much. That's great. Thank you for all the insight, and thank you for getting us to know you.
Thank you, Ilias. I hope when the war is over, we will have much more Greeks coming back to Ukraine too, of those who left and of those who never been to Ukraine. And we are very welcoming nations, and I hope Greeks are a very good example of the nation that can welcome people. So I think we are very similar in that. So I'm looking forward to when people will come here as well, and same as my friends show me things around the bars in Athens. I will always be happy to have friends here in Kyiv. Definitely now it's not that easy for the security reasons, so very happy to have you here in Kyiv, and thank you for your bravery to come here and report from here. But hopefully we'll have much more of good news and good stories and funny stories around Greek-Ukrainian friendships. Thank you, Ilias.
Thank you, Andriy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.